Okay, I've held off doing this one for quite a while. Yeah, this one's a pretty emotional one for me, so we're gonna do our best to get through this one. And yeah, I guess without further ado, let's just dive into it and see what happens. Door one from David Longdon. So David Longdon is a boy. David London was a beautiful singing voice within, I guess his biggest claim to fame is the Big Big Train outfit. He's been with the Big Big Train since Yonderfell Yard, which really kind of put them on the map. You know, before the Yonderfell Yard, I always felt like Big Big Train was just kind of another. I don't want to say run of the mill, but just like another progressive rock band that was trying to emulate the 70s. But I feel like with David's influence, he really did bring about something very, very special within Big Big Train and has been with Big Big Train since then. And he has one other solo album of The Wild River that came out back in 2004. Even with this, he was with a lot of other individuals. Like he was on a number of Louis Phillip albums from Jackie Girl all the way to The Wonder of It All. He played with Martin Orford from IQ, The Old Road, and he was on one of my favorite Tangent albums of Le Sac de Travail. Again, one of my favorite albums from the Tangent, and David's vocal works on there was really something else, was really, really stunning. And just a number of other really prominent things. So he's lended his vocal works to a number of these really prominent progressive rock artists and bands throughout the years. And not only does he lend his voice, but he also has a huge talent for the musicianship and minstrels, playing acoustic and electric guitar, the flutes. So he's much more of like a multi-instrumentalist and singer rather than a singer who just happens to play the flute, keyboards, electric, and acoustic guitars. So now we come to the posthumous album of Door 1. Unfortunately, very early last year, or I guess very early this year. Oh boy, time is soup. Unfortunately, David passed away after complications of a car accident, from my understanding. And yeah, he had pretty much finished off this album and had pretty much finished off the Big Big Train album of Welcome to the Planet. And so there wasn't a whole lot more to do outside of just some production work. So now we come into the album that was released earlier this year. This was released back in October, and I've been sitting on it pretty much since it's come out. It's been hard, because this is really his last definitive work. And after this, that's all we have, from this very talented multi-instrumentalist. But I decided to sit down and actually have a listen to this guy, and oh man, the emotions that I felt while listening to this thing. It's really, really hard to be objective when you're coming to an album like this. I'm going to do my best here. But just know going in that, there's some big emotions. There's some big emotions on here. And really, David did an amazing job of capturing a lot of that. It really goes to show just how talented he was in terms of being a multi-instrumentalist as well as a singer. But ultimately, I was shocked at how incredible a songwriter and a lyricist he was, specifically on Watch It Burn and There's No Ghost Like an Old Ghost, the third and second track on here. There are so many lyrical passages on here that, knowing that he's no longer with us, are so unbelievably moving. The comparison to There's No Ghost Like an Old Ghost is pretty easy to draw. There's not too much of a leap of faith there, but it was within Watch It Burn, especially since it was mainly like the first big song after an intro to Ice House, which is basically just a really sweet instrumental track. Man, it hits really hard. Lyrics like the misery you choose, or the misery that you get are the ones that you choose, or something along those lines. And we're all dead and gone, and all that we have left are what we do with the time that we have. And it's just like a spike right through the heart. It's just so gripping and so raw in that sense. And you can actually see the influence that he had with especially within Big Big Train. I'm feeling a lot of the wassail and folklore aspect of this. It's very dark and haunting, but in in a very soothing and very comforting manner. It's got a lot of contradictions. I kind of glossed over Into the Ice House, which is kind of the intro of this track, but it really is very dark and haunting in that sense, but almost as if, it's dark autumn, so the days are getting shorter and shorter, but the nights are getting much longer, and it feels much more like home, like you're comforted by a hearth, by a fire, with a really nice blanket. So even though there's a lot of darkness around, there is familiarity, there's comfort to be found within this. And you can definitely see this with tracks like Sprang Forward and Letting Go, the 6th and 7th track. The 7th track of the Letting Go being the longest track at over 10 minutes. Like the 6th track of Sang Forward, swelling strings on here that really give this production a very lush mix in that. And I love his singer storytelling aspect on here. I really enjoy that kind of minstrel aspect of it. And he's got such a commanding voice and commanding narrative that it's hard not to be entranced by this story that he's telling. And the Letting Go just reminds me of just how powerful he is as a composer. This is reminding me, because we've had a number of solo albums that have been released this year, specifically from singers from different bands. I'm thinking of Ross Jennings and James LeBray, where it felt much more like a singer-songwriter aspect, much more of a tangent from the band that didn't quite fit with what I kind of thought with those members of being a much more powerful big band. But this is reminding me more of and I'm using these as comparisons rather than to contrast, but it's reminding me a little bit more of what, say, Charlie Griffith from Haken, or what Ryo Okamoto from Spock's Beard did, where it felt like a much more flushed out, realized album rather than an offshoot from a member of a band. And the Letting Go really does exemplify this notion in that it is such a flushed out, really conceived track that this could have very, very, very easily been on a Big Train album, and I wouldn't feel out of place. And I'm not saying that as he's just rewriting Big Train's tracks, but that personality, that flair, that flavor is definitely found on there. And contrast with it, it still has a very signature David London sound with the middle tracks that I've kind of skipped over. The Singer and His Song and Forgive But Not Forget are very quintessentially David's tracks. They wouldn't fit at all really on a Big Train album or any other album that he's been working with. The Singer and the Song is a very, again, storytelling aspect. I love the characters on here. The narrative flow on here is very punctual in that sense. And Forgive But Not Forget is reminding me again of that really dark and more sinister tales that David is able to tell. It's the being able to let go of certain things, but acknowledging the fact that you can't in other ways. And the music is mirrored perfectly in that sense. It's dark, but it's still lush. It's menacing, but still friendly, still very, very presentable. The album closes with just the heartfelt song of them all, which is Love Is All. And it's such a beautiful way to end off this album. It really is David's last will and testament in terms of his musical legacy. It's very Beatles-like in that sense. All you need is love, but it's not melodramatic. It's not overstated. It really is just kind of reinforcing that idea that love will conquer any obstacle that is presented to it. I love the fact that David was able to really synthesize it and put it into musical form as the last piece of this album. So yeah, this album is extremely emotional, but it's a lot of what I'm bringing to the table. Even if this wasn't a posthumous album, even if this was just another album in his own discography, I think David 100% knocked it out of the park in this one. I think it's honestly the best work that I've seen him done, regardless of whatever outfit he seemed to be in. I think he saved a lot of his best music for himself to really digest and really work out, so that when he finally put it onto paper, it was exactly as he wanted it to be. And it was a great, great treat in this one. As much as it pains me to say that this is going to be the last outfit, I'd always be looking forward to more music from David, but unfortunately, I guess he saved the best for last. So In the end, I will have to say that Door 1 from David London is one that I absolutely love with my whole heart. You know, if you haven't checked it out, I highly, highly recommend you do. If you're a fan of, well, music in general, if you've been following David's career through Big Big Train or any of his other outfits, you owe it to yourself to give this one a spin. If you're a fan of progressive rock as a whole, you definitely deserve to give this one a spin. And yeah, bring a box of tissues because you're gonna need some. There were many a times when I was listening to this one that I was, getting quite emotional. But yeah, it just goes to show how talented and how good of a storyteller he was. Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Have you listened to this album? If you have, let me know of your own thoughts about this one by commenting down below. And yeah, I hope you guys are doing well. This album definitely goes to show that you give the loved ones an extra hug every once in a while because, as he says with Watch It Burn and There's No Ghost Like the Old Ghost, we really don't know when our time is up. So yeah, treasure what you have. And that's what I've got for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.